I wore my finest dress and spent the entire evening cooking. At last, my daughter had found a worthy man, I thought, a faint smile brushing my lips. When she departed, she dropped a glove. Inside was a napkin that read, "Mom, please help me. You'll understand at the wedding." Before I go further, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to my story. If you feel like sharing, tell me where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. Now, let me begin. I slipped into my best dress, a deep navy sheath I had treasured for 10 years, and spent the evening preparing dinner. Yet as I smiled at my daughter Pristine and her fiancé, Dr. Bella, a cold knot formed in my stomach. It wasn't fear, it was a quiet, simmering anger. This wasn't a celebration, it was reconnaissance. For the last 3 months, I had assumed the role of August Augustus Duba, the simple 80-year-old grandmother, impressed and slightly daunted by her daughter's new wealthy life. They had no idea who I truly was. To them, I was merely a sweet old lady with a knack for making a decent peach cobbler. They didn't know that for 40 years I had ruled boardrooms, maneuvered through union strikes, and could sense a lie from a mile away. Though retired, my instincts had never faded, and I loathed Dr. Bella. "Alice, this meal is simply exquisite," Bella said, his voice as slick and polished as the luxury watch on his wrist. Handsome, yes, I would grant him that, but his eyes were icy like a banker's. "Oh, it's just old-fashioned cooking, Bella," I replied, softening my tone, letting my voice sound a touch simpler. "I'm just so thrilled for my Pristine. A doctor, my goodness." His mother, Sophia, sat opposite me like a queen surveying her domain, offering a thin, reptilian smile. "Yes, quite a step up. We are very pleased Bella has found someone so pliable, someone to guide. Pristine is such a lovely, unassuming girl." I smiled and nodded as if I agreed. Pliable, unassuming. The words were daggers aimed squarely at us. Sophia, matriarch of the Vance family, wore her old wealth like armor, wielding it to make everyone else feel insignificant. I glanced at my daughter, Pristine, my brilliant, fiery girl, now a mere shadow of herself. Pale and delicate, she flinched whenever Bella moved abruptly. She had lost 20 pounds, insisting it was merely wedding stress. I knew it was him. "We believe in good stock, Alice," Sophia continued, swirling her wine. "Our family has been in this city for generations. Lineage matters. It's vital to know where people come from, don't you think? It shapes everything." "Oh, yes, ma'am," I said, playing the part. "My people are from down in Georgia, just simple farmers, but honest, hard-working stock." Sophia's smile was all teeth. "How rustic! Well, Pristine is a Vance now. She'll be learning our ways. And this wedding, oh, it's going to be the event of the season." I watched as Bella rested his hand over Pristine's. She smiled, but it was brittle, paper thin. Her eyes were hollow. I had come tonight to confirm my suspicions, and as I observed Bella cutting my batter's meat for her as if she were a child, I realized this was not a marriage, it was an acquisition. The dinner concluded with a performance of suffocating courtesy. Bella and Sophia were eager to escape my small, quaint bungalow and return to their sterile, high society realm. "Alice, a true delight," Bella said, kissing the air near my cheek. His hand was firmly planted on Pristine's lower back, guiding her, herding her, toward the door like a prized animal. "Take care of my girl," I said, my voice sweet. "Oh, she's in the best of hands," Sophia replied, not sparing me a glance, preoccupied with her reflection in the hallway mirror. "Mom," Pristine said, her voice thin. She stepped forward for a hug. And it wasn't a hug, it was a vice. Her arms crushed me, her nails digging into my back through the fabric of my dress. It was a silent, desperate scream. "I love you, baby," I whispered, holding her. "I love you," she murmured back, her voice breaking. Then, as she pulled away, she accidentally dropped her glove, a single, cream-colored leather glove. I saw it. I saw her eyes flick down to it, then back to mine for a thousandth of a second. It was an order. Let it lie. "Oh, silly me," she said, her voice brittle. Bella, oblivious, was already steering her toward the door. "We'll get it next time, Mom." "Of course, dear. Good night." I stood at the doorway waving, the perfect picture of the simple grandmother, until their long black car disappeared down the street. The moment the tail lights vanished, I shut the door, bolted the deadbolt, and my face hardened. I walked to the glove. I did not stumble upon the note. I knew it was there. I picked up the glove, my hands perfectly steady. Inside, just as I had anticipated, was a small folded napkin, my own. I unfolded it. The handwriting was my daughter's, but it was uneven, shaken, frightened. "Mom, please help me. You'll understand. At the wedding." The words didn't strike me with panic, but with a cold, sharpening fury. The dam of my doubt shattered, leaving behind only the icy, merciless certainty of the truth. Please help me. It was confirmation of the danger. You'll understand. At the wedding. That was a dead mine, a battleground, a warning to stay still, not to reveal my hand. Pristine knew her fiancé, her captor, was watching her every move. She knew I was the only person who would see through the polished mask. I folded the napkin. I did not cry. My days for tears were long behind me. I was a 72-year-old woman, a retired executive, and a mother, and they had just declared war on my child. They believed I was a harmless old lady. They assumed their wealth and pedigree impressed me. They had no idea who I truly was or what I was about to unleash. My first instinct was to call Pristine, to demand she come home immediately, but I crushed that impulse before it even took shape. I knew, with the cold certainty of an auditor, that her phone was not in her control. Bella was a controller, a watcher. He would monitor her calls, skim her texts. Calling her would be like jostling the cage while the lion stared directly at you. It would only bring her harm. No, monsters like Bella are not confronted head-on. You dismantle them from the shadows, piece by piece. I put the kettle on. Strong black coffee. I needed clarity. Then I made one call. Mattis Jackson answered on the second ring. "Gee, it's 11. If this is about the church fund, I already told you I'm not—" "Mattis, it's—" I interrupted, my voice low and controlled. "Get over here. Bring your laptop. Their ledgers are filthy, and we're going to clean them out." There was a silence. Mattis, who had been my best friend for 45 years, heard the ice in my tone. She didn't need details. "I'm coming." My kitchen table, still covered in the floral vinyl cloth Robert had loved, became a war room. The napkin sat in the center under the overhead light like evidence. Mattis arrived 10 minutes later, a trench coat thrown hastily over her nightgown and her old, powerful laptop tucked beneath her arm. Mattis wasn't merely neighborhood gossip. She was a retired records supervisor for the city. She knew how to uncover things that didn't want to be discovered. "Lord have mercy," she muttered, reading the note. "I knew that man was too pretty. Looks like a funeral director. What did they do?" "They tipped their hand," I said, pouring her a mug of coffee. "They're arrogant. They think I'm a senile, harmless old woman, and they think Pristine is a fragile little thing they've isolated from the herd." I sat down, eyes hard. They insulted me. They insulted my family, and they are hurting my daughter. I slid the note back onto the cable. She can't speak. She's trapped. But she had given me a deadline, the wedding. That meant we had until then to find the leverage we needed to bring them down. Myrtis cracked her knuckles and opened her laptop. The glow illuminated her fierce, determined face. Okay, Gus, you're the CEO, I'm operations. Where do we begin? We start with him, I said, my voice ice cold. Dr. Bella. Men like him, arrogant, controlling, they don't just act out of nowhere. They have history, a pattern. Find it. You're thinking what I'm thinking, Myrtis said, fingers already flying across the keys. He's done this before. So there we sat, two old women in a quiet kitchen, fueled by coffee and righteous fury, digging. We weren't hunting gossip. We were hunting a weapon. For 2 hours, the only sounds were the clicking of Myrtis's keys and the soft thump of coffee mugs on the table. This wasn't a chat over tea. This was an investigation. Myrtis was a virtuoso. She navigated public records, outdated social pages, and encrypted databases she had no business accessing. Got a lot of smoke, she muttered, squinty at the screen. Bella donates to everything, the hospital, the mayor's campaign, the police benevolent fund. He's insulated. His mother, Beatrice, sits on the board of half the charities in the state. They've built a firewall of money and influence. Forget the money, I said. Look for the people. Arrogant men like him don't just act out of nowhere. They have history, a pattern. Find it. Okay. He's dated a lot, always the same type, young, attractive, intelligent, but with no family, no money, no connections, grateful, malleable. The word Sophia used. My stomach clenched. Keep going. Wait. Hold on, Myrtis said, leaning closer. He wasn't just dating them. He was engaged. 5 years ago, the biggest society wedding of the year, announcements everywhere. Then 2 weeks before the ceremony, nothing. She clicked on a link, a clipped announcement from the Gazette Society page. The wedding of Dr. Bella and Miss Allard James has been mutually postponed. Mutually postponed? I scoffed. There's no such thing. That's a cover. What happened to Allard James? Myrtis was already typing. Let's see. Allard James, 25 at the time, second grade teacher at a local elementary school. Parents deceased, a sister in another state. The perfect target. What happened to her? Her face darkened. She vanished. Vanished? I echoed. Yes, Myrtis said, clicking link after link. No social media after that date, no new driver's license, no credit cards, no marriage certificate, no death certificate. She simply ceased to exist. A cold, heavy stone of dread sank into my gut. This was darker than I had imagined. He didn't just break up with her, I whispered. He erased her. We had a name, James, a ghost. This is the pattern, I said, pacing the kitchen as gray dawn light crept in. He finds a smart, beautiful woman with no family to support her, isolates her, controls her, and when she resists, he removes her. But how? Myrtis asked, rubbing her tired eyes. People don't just vanish. The sister, what about her? Myrtis found her. Maria James, now Maria Phelps, living in Oregon. Minimal social media footprint, but on the 5th anniversary of the broken engagement, she had posted a photo of herself with Alar, 2 smiling young women. The caption tore through me. 5 years, still praying you found peace, Ellie. I'll never stop searching for you. She doesn't know what happened to her, I whispered. Wait, Myrtis said, fingers racing again. She was cross-referencing old gossip blogs with society columns. The Laura didn't just say the wedding was postponed. They created a whole narrative. Look. She pointed to a small, snarky blog post from 5 years earlier. A little bird tells us the Vance James wedding is officially off. Seems Dr. Perfect's bride-to-be couldn't handle the pressure. Word is the poor girl had a major emotional breakdown. So unstable. Another article from a more reputable outlet quoted an unnamed family friend. The Lowers are being incredibly gracious. They're managing this quietly and have even paid for Miss James to attend an exclusive treatment clinic in Europe, Switzerland, if I recall, so she can recover. I slammed my mug onto the counter. There it is! The exact same script. They're already painting Pristine as unstable. They called her malleable and simple. They're preparing the ground to discredit her. When she finally collapses, or when he gets bored, they'll say she was the one who lost her mind. They'll tuck her into some clinic or worse, and they'll use their wealth to cement the story. My blood turned to ice. Aller James was the trial run. My daughter is the sequel. He's going to kill her, I said flatly. Maybe not with a weapon. He'll have her drugged into oblivion in some high-end facility until she can't think, or he'll push her until she breaks, until she does something irreversible. And he and his mother will stand at her funeral looking heartbroken and noble. Not happening on our watch, Murtis growled. But Gus, we have nothing. Just a 5-year disappearance and a cover story wrapped up tight. Then we get inside, I said. I looked down at the napkin. Pristine knew I would decipher it. She was trapped in that house, leaving me breadcrumbs. How? Murtis asked. That place is a fortress. You don't break into a fortress, I said, as my mind clicked into place, the old boardroom strategist resurfacing. You get invited inside, and I know exactly how. They think I'm a poor, simple old woman. Beneath them, that arrogance is the key to their front door. My plan was straightforward. Weaponize their arrogance. I would become the most pitiful, deferential, grateful relative they had ever encountered. I waited a day, letting them believe I was still basking in the glow of their supposed generosity. Then I called the Vance estate. I didn't ask for Bella. I asked for the head of the house. I asked for Sophia. When she answered, her voice sounded like ice cubes clinking in a glass. Alice, to what do I owe the pleasure? I made my voice tremble, weak, overwhelmed, full of humble admiration. Oh, Mrs. Vance, Sophia, I was just so moved by your lovely home and by, well, everything. I didn't get to thank you properly. That's kind of you, she said, boredom coding each word. And I know we're simple people, like I mentioned, but we have a family tradition. My grandmama started a wedding quilt, then my mama added to it, and I added a piece when I married my Robert. I let my voice wobble. It's the only heirloom our family has, and I would be so honored to bring it to the house for Pristine, her something old. There was a long, weighted silence. I could practically hear the gears turning, the smirk forming. A pathetic handmade quilt on the poor side of the family, a perfect show of submission, exactly what she expected, proof of her superiority. Alice, she finally said, syrupy with condescension, that is adorable. What a quaint little tradition. Very well, you may bring it tomorrow at 2:00.
The decorators will be arriving, so you cannot remain long, but I'll permit the visit. Oh, thank you, Mrs. Vance, thank you, I said with exaggerated enthusiasm, staying in character even though the act made my own skin prickle and disgust. I ended the call. I'm in, I said to Martis, who sat across from me. A quaint tradition, Martis snorted. That woman deserves a brick to the skull. So you get through the door, but then what? You can't just start rummaging around. I won't need to, I replied, heading toward my linen closet. I reached inside and brought out the quilt. It was genuine. It was gorgeous. And it was the final thing my mother ever stitched. Pristine knew this quilt. She understood its significance. When I presented it, she'd realize I wasn't showing up with some family heirloom. I was answering her call. She'd know I was there to fight. I folded the quilt carefully. She couldn't speak freely at my home, and she'll be monitored constantly in hers. But she's sharp-marked. She left me one breadcrumb already. She'll find a way to leave another. I wasn't going to the Vance estate to offer a sentimental gift. I was going to collect my next clue. The Vance estate was far more terrifying than I'd imagined. It wasn't a house. It was a cold marble and glass tomb, a stronghold exactly like I'd predicted. Staff members in identical gray uniforms drifted through the corridors, their expressions blank. They didn't resemble employees. They looked like guards. Sophia greeted me in the cavernous, echoing foyer. She wore a beige pantsuit that probably cost more than my entire car. "Alice," she said without moving forward to greet me. "How punctual." "I brought the quilt," I said, offering the heavy cloth-wrapped bundle. "Charming," she responded. "Place it on the console. The staff will bring it to Pristine's room later. She's dreadfully occupied with a fitting at the moment." My heart dropped. She wasn't even going to allow me to see my daughter. "Oh," I murmured, infusing my voice with wounded disappointment. I was hoping to give it to her myself. I wanted to explain the stitching."
"That won't be possible," Sophia began. But at that moment, Bella's voice echoed from the top of the sweeping staircase. "Mother, the wedding planner is here. She has questions about the exact shade of white for the cruda. Oh, Alice, you're here." He came down the stairs, smiling wide and insincerely, "Bringing us things." "It's a family quilt, dear," I said, shuffling my feet as if embarrassed. "How lovely," he replied, his gaze icy. Then to his mother, "The planner, she's waiting in the garden room." Sophia sighed sharply. "Very well. Alice, you'll have to excuse us. The staff will show you out." They turned their backs to me, a blatant dismissal, and walked down the hall. That was it. My opportunity had slipped away. But then movement caught my eye. As Bella and Sophia entered the garden room, I saw her, Pristine, a pale, fragile ghost of herself, visible for just an instant. A housekeeper hovered beside her, keeping watch. I had seconds to act. "Oh my!" I cried dramatically, pretending to trip. I dropped my purse. My compact, lipstick, coins, and keys rolled across the immaculate marble floor. "Oh my stars! My old knee!" The housekeeper guarding Pristine sighed and abandoned her watch to come help the clumsy old woman. "Ma'am, please." It was all the time I needed. Pristine now stood at the glass door leading to the garden. She couldn't speak. She couldn't wave. She only stared. Her eyes were wide, desperate. She leaned against the glass, trembling. Her hand, thin, pale, pressed to the pane, but she wasn't gesturing toward me. She was pointing at the garden behind her. My gaze followed her finger. The garden was filled with flawless white roses, sterile, perfect, soulless, except for one spot. In a place of prominence stood a single, newly planted rose bush. The soil around it was fresh and dark. Its blossoms were a deep, violent, horrifying shade of blood red. Pristine's eyes locked onto mine. She tapped the glass. Once. Twice. "Look there." I've got it," the housekeeper said, shoving my belongings back into my purse. "Thank you, dear. You're a lifesaver," I replied, though my pulse thundered in my ears. Sophia and Bella reappeared. "Alice, are you still here?" Just heading out, I said, though my mind was still burning with the image of that lone blood-red rose. Thank you again for your time. I walked out of that house, my hands trembling. I had my next clue. Pristine was brilliant. She had shown me exactly where to look. I drove away from that marble tomb of a mansion, squeezing the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles had gone bone white. That single crimson rose kept replaying in my mind. It wasn't a design choice. It wasn't a garden preference. It was a message, a warning. When I got home, Martis was waiting, a fresh pot of coffee already steaming on the counter. One glance at my face, and the joking edge in her faded instantly. "You found something," she said. It wasn't a question. I showed me. I whispered, my voice low and trembling with a cold, pressurized rage. One rose bush, alone, new, blood red. Martis's complexion drained. "Oh, God." "They think they're clever," I said, pacing my tiny kitchen. The floral vinyl under my feet felt like it was vibrating. "They believe they're invincible. Bella with those surgeon's hands and those dead, empty eyes. Sophia with her holy bloodlines and her armor of money. They're a team," I said bitterly. "He's the monster. She's the one who cleans up afterward. She tends the grounds." "The new bush," Martis murmured, finally catching up. "You don't think—" "I don't think, I know. He's done this before, the ghost, Ellie James." Martis was already at her laptop, fingers flying. "Okay, a rare crimson rose. I can track that. You don't pick something like that up at a home improvement store. You go to a specialist, a grower." She dove into research, her face lit by the glow of the screen. For an hour, she made phone call after phone call, her voice adopting the persona of an entitled heiress, commissioning a lavish estate garden. "Yes, I'm looking for something exclusive, something with a pedigree." She was a genius at this. After 3 failures, she struck gold.
"I found him," she whispered, covering the speaker with her palm. "Some old-school rose elitist in Pennsylvania. Supplies half the old money estates on the East Coast. Says he has a private client in our city. Says he can't stand her. Claims she's rude as a wasp, but she pays in cash." "Sophia," I breathed. Martis switched to speakerphone. "Sir, I'm terribly concerned about the varietal. I want something steeped in history. What did you send to the Vance estate?" The man's voice was nasal, greedy, and irritated. "The Vances, yes, a demanding woman, only ever requests one variety, the black midnight rose, an heirloom, nearly black, looks like a blood clot in the sun, very dramatic, very gothic." My heart slammed to a stop. "How rare is it?" Martis asked. "Is it a popular order?" "Hardly," the man scoffed. "It's a nightmare to grow. But that woman, Sophia Vance, orders one every few years, always cash, always wants it delivered in an unmarked truck, left on the service road. No receipts, no paperwork. I've shipped her 12 bushes in the past 5 years. Martis and I locked eyes. 12. "Wait a second," the man added, tapping on his keyboard. "She's consistent, I'll give her that. First major order was 5 years ago. And then, she just ordered another, a single bush sent last month." Martis hung up. The silence in the kitchen was suffocating. 5 years. The year Ellie vanished. Last month? The month Pristine got engaged. "It's not a garden, Mart," I whispered, horror settling over me like a funeral shroud. "It's a graveyard." I didn't sit. I couldn't. Something inside me began vibrating, a cold, electric fury rising from my chest to my fingertips. I'd spent 40 years in boardrooms staring down men who considered themselves sharks. They were nothing. They were guppies compared to this. This was a different creature, a cold reptilian kind of evil.
He's not just killing them, I said, my voice echoing hollowly in the tiny room. He's collecting them. Martis looked physically ill. She stood, grabbed the brandy I kept for medicinal emergencies, and poured us both a shot. She handed me one. Drink. I swallowed it. The burn did nothing to thaw the ice in my bloodstream. Think about it, Mart, I said, lowering the glass. The arrogance, the sheer, unfiltered arrogance. He doesn't hide his victims. He plants them. He displays them like ornaments. He turns them into trophies he can admire every single day. 12 bushes, Martis whispered. Gus, you don't think there were 12 women? No, I said, my thoughts spinning. No, that's too many, too reckless. He's a surgeon. He's methodical. Alora, the first one, those 12 bushes were symbolic, a monument, a shrine to his first major triumph, his first flawless act of domination. I exhaled, then pointed to the mental image burned in my mind. But the new one, the single bush, that's different. That one isn't a memorial. That one is a warning. That's the one he made sure Pristine saw. That's the one she directed me to. Martis's eyes stretched wide with horrified realization. He's telling her. He's showing her what happens if she tries to escape. He's marking her place. That spot is meant for her. That's why she's terrified, I continued as the remaining pieces snapped into place. It isn't only the control. It's that he's already shown her the grave he's prepared. He's forcing her to look at it every day.
And the wedding, I whispered, my stomach twisting. My God, the wedding isn't the start of her future. It's the deadline, the point of no return. Once she says I do, she's legally absorbed. Her identity disappears. She becomes Mrs. Bella. And when she goes missing, who will challenge it? They'll recycle the same script, Martis said, voice shaking as she followed the logic. She's emotional. She's unstable. She suffered a breakdown after the ceremony. They'll claim they sent her to that fancy clinic in Switzerland, and she'll simply never be heard from again. We weren't just trying to save Pristine's autonomy anymore. We were trying to save her life. We have to go to the police, Martis said, grabbing her coat in panic. No, I snapped, raising my hand sharply. We can't. What would we even tell them? A theory about a rose bush? A rumor from a greenhouse owner who deals in cash? The Vances own the police. They own the judges. The moment we call anyone, Sophia will have that entire garden uprooted and replaced with concrete before midnight. We would only accomplish signing Pristine's death certificate, I said grimly. We'd just speed up their timeline. Then what do we do, Gus? We can't just wait for the wedding. No, I said, my eyes drifting toward the phone. We're not waiting. We need proof. Something from that garden. Something tied to Alora. The police won't buy speculation, but they will respond to evidence. You can't just walk back in there. You already used your quilt excuse. A cold, thin smile curved across my mouth. Oh, yes. Yes, I can. Sophia and Bella, I said softly. They're elitists. They look down on me, and more than anything, they loathe my ordinariness. They were so disgusted by my plain, rustic mannerisms that they couldn't recognize the danger standing right in front of them, and that revulsion, they had no idea, was the very tool I'd use to slip straight through their defenses. I waited until the following afternoon. Then I called the Vance estate. This time I didn't ask for Beatrice. I asked for the housekeeper instead. This is Alice Dubois, I said, letting my voice tremble, frail, embarrassed, fragile. Oh my, I feel just mortified. I was so overwhelmed yesterday that I left my family's quilt behind. But that's not really why I'm calling. The housekeeper responded in a flat, professional tone. How may I assist you, Mrs. Dubois?
Well, when I was there, I was chatting with Mrs. Vance about my simple family customs, and she was just so gracious. And it got me thinking, I have something else, something Pristine can use to truly put down roots in her new home. It belonged to my late husband, Robert. He was a gardener, you know. It's just his old tools in his old wooden box. I I'd like to bring them to her for the rehearsal dinner tomorrow as a sort of blessing for her new garden. There was a pause. Ma'am, I don't think... Oh, please, I whispered, letting a pathetic, quivering crack slip into my voice. I just want to put them in the garden myself. Just one tiny blessing. It would mean the world to an old woman. I heard her sigh. She was remembering the disaster I'd caused in the foyer, but she was also picturing some sentimental, harmless elderly fool. One moment. She put me on hold. I knew exactly who she was consulting, Sophia. I could practically hear the conversation. The old bat wants to bring a box of filthy antique tools. Then Beatrix's lofty, aristocratic exhale. Fine, let her play in the dirt. It'll keep her away from the real guests. The housekeeper returned. Mrs. Vance has approved it. You may attend the rehearsal dinner tomorrow, but you are not to interfere with the event. You may place your box in the garden and nothing more. Oh, thank you, dear. Thank you. I hung up and turned to Martis. I'm in. After that, I headed to my shed. The place smelled of soil, oil, and my Robert, his presence still lingering in the air. I found his old wooden toolbox. It was worn, scarred, its hinges nearly eaten through with rust. Perfect. I placed his hand trowel inside, his pruning shears, and then filled the bottom with a thick, weighty layer of the richest, darkest, muddiest potting soil I could find. Tomorrow night, I would carry my rough, earthy world straight into theirs and make them pay for every ounce of their disdain. The rehearsal dinner was a grand performance of superiority. A string quartet played softly across the lawn. Waitstaff in crisp white tuxedos glided around with champagne trays. The mansion glowed like a lighthouse of wealth and dominance. I rolled in with my 10-year-old Buick, parking it right between a sleek black Bentley and a gleaming silver Maserati. I wore my navy sheath dress, the same one from the first dinner. I wanted them to see me as ordinary. I carried Robert's toolbox. It was heavy. Sophia spotted me and her face tightened in irritation. She was a dazzling sight in emerald green, diamonds sparkling along her neck. Alice, you came, and you brought your box. It was very kind of you to let me, I replied, layering my voice with sugary humility. Yes, yes, she was barely listening, already scanning for guests of actual importance. Bella is occupied. Go do whatever you need to do in the garden, and do not make a mess. I'll be as silent as a mouse, I promised. I walked through the mansion. The grand foyer, white marble, glass, spotless, gleamed under the lights. The soft thump of my old lady's shoes echoed faintly. I passed the terrace guests. They moved aside automatically like I was staff. Their eyes slid right past me, invisible. Exactly as I intended. I slipped into the garden and waited. I needed the perfect moment. It arrived when Bella stepped onto the terrace to deliver a toast. Everyone's attention shifted toward him. He lifted his glass, his voice booming with that nauseating, polished charm. To my mother for her impeccable taste, and to my beautiful fiancée, Pristine. I was standing just at the edge of the terrace by the entry to the foyer, only a few steps away from the brand new blood-red rosebush. I inhaled deeply and tripped. Not a stumble, a full, dramatic plunge. I cried out and flung the toolbox forward. It crashed onto the immaculate white marble. The hinges snapped, the lid flew open. A tidal wave of thick, black, muddy potting soil surged across the foyer floor. The rusty tools tumbled out, clattering loudly, scraping trails of grime behind them. The string quartet froze mid-note. Bella's toast died halfway out of his mouth. Every guest turned in unison to stare. The silence was suffocating. "Oh, my heavens!" I shrieked, dropping onto my hands and knees. "My husband's box! The dirt! Oh, look at the mess on your lovely white floor!" Beatrice stared at the spreading pool of thick black soil, and for a split second, her flawless mask split wide open. I saw raw, undiluted disgust. She looked at that dirt as though it were a mortal injury inflicted on her home. "Clean it up!" she screamed at the staff. "Get it off my floor, now!" Bella's expression had hardened into pure fury. "What in the hell?" This was it, the distraction. Every eye, every guard, every staff member was fixated on the chaos, the clumsy, common old woman who had dragged her grime into their spotless palace. I stayed on my hands and knees, babbling apologies, waving my arms. "I'm so sorry. I'll help clean it." I scrambled upward, grabbing the hand trowel. But instead of going toward the mess, I slipped past it, heading straight for the garden. "I'll just get this out of the way," I cried, pretending to sob. I made it to the new rose bush. Martis had been right. Bella was a collector, a psychopath, but a lazy one. I didn't even need to dig. The mulch was barely tamped down. I plunged the trowel once and hit something solid. Dropping to my knees, my back to the house, I pretended to shake with humiliation. My hands tunneled into the dirt, and my stiff, arthritic 72-year-old fingers closed around a cold metal box. I yanked it free. A small, waterproof ammo can. "Ma'am, let us take care of that," a waiter said, his voice tight with dread. I shoved the mud-covered box deep into the front of my dress, pressing it against my stomach. Then I stood, trembling, clutching my chest. I think I need to go home. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry." "Yes," Bella hissed, his voice like a venomous snake. "You should go." I turned, holding my filthy dress together, and shuffled out of that mansion as quickly as my old legs would move. Gasps and whispers trailed behind me like smoke. I didn't just have a clue. I had the entire damn case. Martis had the door to my bungalow open before I had even stepped out of the Buick. "Did you get it?" she demanded. I didn't answer. I walked straight past her, through the living room, into the kitchen. I dropped the muddy, heavy box onto the vinyl-covered table. It landed with a wet, dull thump. "Lord above, Alice," she breathed. The box was locked, not with a key, but with a simple, cheap combination lock, the kind sold at any hardware store. "He's arrogant," I muttered, my voice shaking. Adrenaline was the only thing keeping me upright. "So arrogant, he thinks no one would ever dare check. He buried it, but he wanted to come back to it, to open it, to relive it." I stared at the lock. "Pristine," I whispered. "He's mocking her with it. The combination has to be connected to her." "Her birthday?" Marta suggested. I tried it. Nothing. "His birthday?" I spun the numbers. The lock clicked open. "That sick son of a," Martis whispered. I lifted the lid. A smell of damp, rotten, aged paper drifted out. This wasn't Pristine's. She hadn't buried this. She had found it. And Bella had allowed her to see. He had shown her the truth. It was his ultimate display of dominance. Inside, on a bed of ruined silica packets, lay a small leather-bound diary, its pages swollen and warped with water. Beneath it was a cheap plastic prepaid burner phone. My hands trembled so hard I couldn't open the diary. Martis gently took it from me. She coaxed the swollen cover apart. The first pages were exactly what we expected. The early entries were written in a young woman's looping, bubbly handwriting. Bella is perfect. He says he wants to shield me from everything. Then the tone shifted.
His mother, Beatrice, frightens me. She told me I don't have the pedigree to be a Vance. Bella just laughed and said I shouldn't take her seriously. Then came the fear. He locked the door. He took my phone. He says I'm hysterical. I'm not hysterical. I'm trapped. I'm a prisoner. And finally, the last entry. The handwriting was frantic, slanted, ripped through the page, ink gouged into the paper. November 10th, he found my bag. He found the bus ticket. He knows I tried to run. He didn't yell. He just laughed. He said I disappointed him. He said there's only one way I'll ever leave him. He said I'm so beautiful I deserve a beautiful resting place. He said he'd bury me under the roses, his mother's black midnight roses. I'm burying this. I'm putting it in the box he gave me. If anyone ever... Oh, God, he's coming up the stairs. He's coming for... Martis shut the diary. We didn't speak. We just stared at the box on the table. We were holding a murder in our hands. I picked up the burner phone. It was dead. Martis rummaged in her purse and pulled out a universal charger. We plugged it in. The screen blinked on. No calls, no contacts, but one folder, unsent messages, drafts, all written to a single saved number, Mom. Mom, he's going to kill me. He said he'll bury me where no one will ever find me. Mom, Beatrice too. She told him to. She called me a loose end. Mom, tell someone to look under the roses, the black midnight roses. Please, Mom, please help me. None of them had ever sent. The phone had been buried before it could catch a signal. This wasn't a trophy. It was a testament. I stood up. The grandmother in me vanished. The executive inside me vanished. What remained was pure, cold, ancient fury. He didn't just kill her, I said, my voice a low, terrifying monotone. He let her hope. He let her write these messages knowing they would never send. He buried her alive with her own unanswered pleas. I looked at Martis. This isn't justice. This is revenge.
We didn't dial 911. We didn't go to the local station. The Lauras owned half that department. Martis made one call. William, it's your Aunt Martis. I need you, not as a detective, as family. I'm at Alice Dubois' house, and we have a body. Detective William Stokes, Martis's nephew, was a broad-shouldered homicide bulldog and one of the only officers in the city the Lauras couldn't buy. He was at my door in 15 minutes. We laid everything out on the kitchen table. The mud-smeared diary, the phone, the nursery receipts, the timeline. He read the diary. He read the unsent texts. His already severe expression hardened into stone. Allard James, he muttered. She was a missing persons case 5 years back. The Vance's attorney shut it down, claimed she was unstable and ran away. But this is a confession.
He stood abruptly, hand resting on his holster. "I'm getting a warrant. I'm taking a forensics team to that estate tonight. We're digging up that entire damn garden." "No." My voice was soft, but it froze him. He turned to me. "Alice," he said gently, but with authority, "this is a homicide investigation. This is my job." "And I'm telling you, detective," I replied, my voice as cold and immovable as iron, "that if you go there tonight, you will lose." I stepped closer. "You'll walk in with your warrant, and their $1 million lawyer will meet you on the grass. He'll drown you in motions. He'll say the evidence is tainted, planted, forged by a bitter old woman. And while you argue in court, Bella and Sophia will be boarding a private jet to Switzerland, a country where you cannot touch them." I swallowed. "And they will take my daughter with them." He knew I was right. The frustration tightening his jaw was all the confirmation I needed. "This isn't only about justice, detective," I said, stepping toward him. "This is about obliteration. Their power doesn't come solely from their wealth. It comes from their legacy, their prestige, that flawless image Bella toasted tonight. If we're going to bring them down, it can't be done in the shadows. It has to happen in the open, under full light, where every eye can see." "Gus, what are you planning?" Martis whispered, alarm flickering in her gaze. I turned to the detective. "The wedding. It's tomorrow at 2 p.m. at St. Hydia Cathedral. The bishop is officiating. The mayor will be seated in the front row. Every influential person in this city will be inside those walls." "You want me to arrest him at the altar?" the detective asked slowly, a flicker of admiration spreading across his face. "No. I want you to wait." He blinked. "I want you in the pews, you and your partner, dressed like respectable churchgoers. Let the ceremony proceed. Let him bask in his delusion. Let him believe he's untouchable. And then I'll signal you." "Alice, this is way outside protocol. This is our only shot," I cut in. "We can arrest a man, or we can bring down an empire. I want their name dragged through the mud. I want his mother cornered with no place to run. I want the public to condemn them before a jury ever sees them. That's the only way to ensure they don't walk free." The detective stared at the diary, then at the phone. When he finally looked up, his decision was made. "St. Hydia, 2 p.m. My partner and I will be in the back pew." St. Hydia Cathedral was a shrine to Vance dominance. The air was heavy with the scent of thousands of white orchids. The mayor sat front and center. Elite families filled the pews, murmuring about the spectacle of last night's rehearsal dinner. They came for gossip. I delivered something far better. I arrived alone, in the same worn navy sheath. I moved down the aisle, merely an old woman, and slipped into a seat. Beatrice, resplendent in silver lace, swept over like a vengeful specter. "Alice," she hissed, her voice low and poisonous. "I am astonished you dare show your face. After the disgraceful chaos you caused, you will remain silent, or I'll have you removed." "I'm only here to watch my daughter marry Sophia," I replied sweetly. Her eyes narrowed, sharp as glass. She couldn't read me, and my absolute lack of fear unsettled her more than any threat would have. She glided back to her seat. The music began. Bella stood at the altar, smug and glowing with victory. He wore his mask well, the charming gentleman he pretended to be. Then Pristine appeared. She looked like a spirit, ashen, shaking, hollow-eyed. A bride being escorted to her own execution. Her eyes met mine. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I simply gave one small nod. A vow. The bishop, his cathedral underwritten by Vance money, drifted through his sermon about love and sacred vows. Then he reached the line. If anyone here has reason these two should not be united in matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. Silence flooded the cathedral. Bella's shoulders loosened. His smirk returned. He began lifting Pristine's veil. Wait! My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the cathedral like a blade. It sliced through the silence like a blade, sharp, unmistakable. Every head in the cathedral whipped toward me. Alice, sit down, Sophia screeched, her voice fracturing under panic. Bella's expression darkened instantly. What is the meaning of this? Remove her, now. I apologize, Bishop, I said, rising slowly, my spine straight and steady. I have a reading. I walked forward, calm and unbothered. I was told I couldn't bring my little quilt. I was told my old tools weren't welcome. But I did bring one final keepsake, a family story. Gasps fluttered through the room as I moved past the sputtering bishop. I wasn't carrying a Bible. Instead, I held a worn, dirt-stained leather diary. What is that? Bella snarled. A reading, I replied evenly, opening the book. From Era James. The name detonated through the cathedral like a gunshot. The mayor jerked in his seat. The guests murmured in disbelief. Bella's fury drained into chalk-white fear. She's lying. She's senile. It's fake, Sophia shrieked, scrambling from her pew like a cornered animal. Am I? I asked softly, letting the question hang in the air. I turned to the first page. Bella is a dream. He says he wants to shield me from the world. Stop it, Bella roared. But I continued, my voice cold and steady, echoing through the magnificent, suddenly breathless church. I read about her isolation. I read about her terror. And then I read the final, damning line. He found my bag. He laughed. He said I'd only ever leave him one way. He said he'd bury me under the roses. The phrase, under the roses, rippled through the cathedral like a curse. Bella's thin veneer of civility shattered. His rage erupted. But he didn't lunge at me. He lunged at Pristine. He clamped her arm in a bruising grip. You did this. And that was his fatal slip. It's true, Pristine screamed, tearing off her veil. Her voice, ragged and thick with a year's worth of terror, filled the vaulted space. He told me I was next. He showed me the rose bush he planted for me. The church exploded into chaos. Guests leapt to their feet. Phones shot into the air recording. This was no wedding. This was a public execution. You, Sophia screeched, throwing herself at me, hands curled like claws. You've destroyed us. No, ma'am, came a calm, resonant voice from the aisle. You destroyed yourselves. Detective Stokes and his partner stood there, badges gleaming, aisle cleared for them. Dr. Bella Vance, Stokes announced, his voice booming over the pandemonium. You are under arrest for the kidnapping and murder of Era James. Beatrice Vance, he continued, turning to the trembling woman, You are under arrest as an accessory to murder and for unlawful disposal of a body." As the detectives cuffed them, Bella, a trapped, pitiful creature, still thrashed and screamed at Pristine. Sophia simply deflated, all the armor of wealth stripped away, leaving only a bitter, exhausted woman. I closed the diary. Then I walked forward, past the detectives, past the sobbing, ruined guests, past the family whose empire had just collapsed. I climbed the steps to the altar. Pristine crumpled into my arms, her sobs echoing through the stunned quiet that followed. I held her tightly. "It's over, baby," I whispered, stroking her hair. "Mama's here. I told you I'd..."